Okay, Merwin coming at you from beautiful Post Falls, Idaho. Uh, yeah, no coffee in there. Okay, so this is basically a just thoughts on a couple of things. This is going to be pretty short. There's this is kind of a continuation from yesterday's politics. Ideologies by themselves, rank and file ideologies are not the problem. And we got lots of problems in this country, and almost all of them are generated by politicians and fueled by media, both left and right, but mostly left. This is politicians. They are the radicals. The media are the radicals, not the radicals that are out actually hurting people by their one-on-one, I'm going to hurt you with a brick or whatever the deal is, or I'm going to get standing in line on the freeway blocking traffic. No, these guys are the ones that talk people into doing that. The media, the Maxine Waters, the rank and file uh, ideology adherents, the peeps in the ranks who lean either left or right, they are mostly centrist, oddly enough. And they have, in my opinion, been talked into thinking that the other guy is radical. And the other guy, girl, is not all that radical. They just are not. Liberal guy and girl is not Antifa or Black Lives Matter. They may have sympathies for Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and they're not against the cause as far as they know the cause to be. They think it's in some ways beneficial, but they're not involved or invested in it enough to want to get out there and be the radical their own selves. And they really don't like the violent behavior. Same thing on the right. The right is not in agreement at all with the Capitol riots on January 6th. They are not in agreement with it. They don't like it. They don't want it. They're not for that. Wasn't for it. They spoke out against it when it happened. And that is a small, indistinct difference between the left and the right. The left does not speak out against Antifa and Black Lives Matter as vociferously as the right speaks out against those who stormed the Capitol building, who were reportedly on the right. We are very vociferous that that was wrong. It never should have happened. And people in the crowd who saw people going into the Capitol building were speaking out against it vociferously, saying, "Stop, you're not one of us," yada, yada, yada. This is not how we behave. That is a indistinct difference between the left and the right ideology rank and file members. The rank and file members on the left are not as voice against Antifa and Black Lives Matter as the people on the right were vociferous against those peeps who stormed the Capitol building. Now, that being the case, the right is not against rank and file mentality or ideology that says we need social programs. Not necessarily against welfare, not necessarily against all those compassionate desires that the left has, the rank and file left has for the poor. Not against healthcare necessarily. And by necessarily, I mean healthcare done in a fiscal, responsibly accurate way of doing it. There are ways to do it. When the system that generated Social Security benefits for the aged, I'd be among them, was first instituted, it was instituted with the caveat that it could not be tapped into for any other purposes other than the retirement benefits and or disabilities of the people it was intended to help. Well, fiscal responsibility says that needed to be adhered to, and it hasn't been adhered to. That's the gripe that the right, speaking against social programs such as Social Security benefits, that's the gripe that the right has against that kind of program, because it's rarely fiscal responsibly adhered to, ever, because it's government. It's like President Biden. He says, well, we need to do all these things with the infrastructure thing. It's a thing. We need to do all these things with that, and it will be paid for by raising taxes. Nonsense. It will not be paid for by raising taxes. Why? Because when the right and the irresponsible right and the always financially irresponsible left leadership, politicians never, ever raise taxes and then keep spending the same, keep spending at the same level. They always raise taxes and then raise the spending value. So when they say we're going to pay for it by raising taxes, nonsense. They're not doing that. They're raising taxes and then increasing the spending to always be in a deficit category of fiscal irresponsibility. That's their way of doing it. And it may not be the way they intend on doing it by what they're promising, But that's nonsense too. They're lying to us and have been lying to us all these years, all these decades. They raise taxes and spend more. Raise taxes in order, they say, we need to do this. Let's raise the taxes and it'll pay for that thing we need to do. Well, they raise the taxes to pay for it and then start spending even more because they got more money. And so it's a never ending, let's do this, raise taxes to pay for it and spend more money. Oh, well, let's got this other thing we do. Let's raise taxes to pay for it. And then they spend more money. That's the way it works. That's the way it always has worked. That's the way it always will work until we, the people, we, the rulers of this country, the citizenry, puts its foot down and tells our representatives, you need to balance the budget and you need to cut spending. And there needs to be an amendment for balancing the budget. There needs to be an amendment for a percentage every year for decreasing the deficit. You need to cut taxes. That will raise the revenue. The trickle down thing works. It does. It always has. And I'm a poor guy, so I'm not saying it for the sake of enriching the rich. Although I don't have a problem with the rich getting richer. They're not the bad guys. They are the ones generating wealth, not just for themselves, but for everyone. Capitalism works. Anyhow, where am I at on this? I am at 12 minutes, so I'll talk a little bit longer. Fiscal responsibility is something that, if done, would allow for ideologies to get along with one another, the right and the left ideologies. Conservatism and liberalism can work together, but it's got to be done fiscally responsible. In other words, the right has got no problem whatsoever in agreeing with social programs that are promoted by the left as long as they're fiscally responsible. We can get along just fine, rank and file. It's the politicians that's got us at each other's throat, and it's the media fueling that fire. It's probably not going to happen. Why? Because I believe we're at the end days. Unless the Lord intervenes and causes the citizenry to rise up and understand that the other side of the ideology, whichever side it is not the problem. The Lord needs to intervene and convince rank and file people to quit insulting the other side, even the politicians on the other side, even the media on the other side. Quit insulting them, because that is just fueling the fire of division. The right needs to quit calling the left libtards. And, it's not going to be an immediate fix, but the right needs to lead the way on that. They need to be the example on that. They need, because if they are the more reasonable side, they need to set the example of reason and quit acting in a divisive way, in an insulting way. You can say what's wrong without insulting the other side to do it. Pure and simple. Okay, I'm at 15 minutes. That's enough. Lord bless your day. Walk in the joy of the Lord. His joy is your strength. Have a good one. Love you guys. Bye. In broadcast. There we go.